Just as I sit down, I hear this racket going on a few miles from here, whatever that is. Sounds like construction. Figures. Oh well. I'm sure I don't have this thing tuned right. You know, I found this thing. It's a Conrad 1595 Barry Uke, all solid mahogany. And I found this in a flea market for $25 with the case. And then I look it up online, and there's people that are selling these things for $350. That was kind of funny. I was just going to get it to hang on the wall, but I've actually used it on a couple songs when I was recording, just to give it a different texture. That's one thing I learned to do. I've had these fantastic guitars and equipment, like a Rhodes 73 piano, Rhodes 88. I've had RMI pianos. I've had Wurlitzer 200s. I've had two of them. And over the years, I sold these things to get the newest and best thing, and realizing that was the best thing. Even now, it's great stuff. Same with guitars. I've had some guitars I don't even want to talk about. So I've made a rule. Anytime I buy an instrument now, I made a rule with myself: no matter what, I don't sell it. Doesn't matter what kind of an instrument. Instruments can always be used in recordings. They can be used just to have, you know, to give you some different insight. What I wanted to talk about, working when you're being a musician. Everybody has had to do this at some point in their life. Sometimes you got to do it throughout your musical life. Are you a musician? This is what it was when I was younger. Well, what kind of musician? Are you a full-time musician? Like that makes any difference. Somehow, if you're a full-time musician, you're serious. Somehow, if you're a full-time musician, you're better than people who aren't. And you have to do, I think that's really old school. You have to do what you have to do to survive. For years, I worked at convenience stations, and I was manager at a great guitar store. I'm going to try to find some pictures and put in this. I mean, they were fantastic guitar stores. They started like at $2,000 on up, and it was just acoustic guitars. And what a great store. I hated retail because I'd worked it before. It was just horrible to me. And this guy kept saying, he was the manager at that time, he kept saying to me, "Jerry, I know you don't want to do this around your playing, but this would be a great job for you, and people know you around here, and they'd buy guitars from you, but also you'd really like it. It's not the same clientele that come in here that come into retail establishments a lot of time." And I'm going like, no, I just couldn't bear to do it. And finally, one day I said, okay, I'll do one night, because he said, just start out with one night. And I did it, and I ended up a few years there being manager there, and I loved the job. I knew it wouldn't last forever, because those kind of jobs never do. And really, one thing you know about a job is that it is time limited. It's always time limited. It's never going to last forever. It rarely does it. The days of having 30-year jobs like my parents did, or someone like that. Of course, my dad was a farmer. That was different. That's what he was from the time he was young. He's 95, and he just really retired, but he still like runs a combine, you know, in South Dakota, and does his work. And that's still on his mind, what he does. When you have to work all day at a job, like maybe 8 hours, and you come home, now you get to do what you really love, and you're tired, and it sucks, because you only got an hour or two to work before you have to go to bed and start the day all over again. So it would be a lot of times I'd be at work and I'd have this song on my mind that I was writing, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I'd get home, and at night is when I would start writing and practicing. That's the only time I could. Then you get up and, 7 o'clock and do the day all over again. And that could go for any line of work, whatever you're endeavoring to do, music or not, whatever line of work, artist, whatever. I've known guys that did that their whole life, and they're actually more creative, and they got more done that way than if you'd have the whole day off. Sometimes having the whole day off just to do what you do, you don't get anything done. A way to find out is get a stopwatch, get a clock, and every minute that you're working, keep track of that, and you'll see how much you're really working during the day. The first time I did it, I thought I was working 9-hour days when I wasn't working a job, and I realized I worked about 2 hours that day. And so I had to adjust things, and I was getting things done, but not as fast as I wanted to. Geez, I wonder why. That time for me should have just been 2 hours for practicing, or 3, and then you're working on songs, or maybe it's all the same. You're writing, you're working, it is practicing. But sometimes working jobs can be a lifesaver. That's what I found out after a while, because it just made me concert my efforts. It just made me really, it's probably the wrong word, but made me really work it with the time I had. You know, not everybody has time to be an artist. You know, everybody's going to be an artist, I get it. Whether you're a filmmaker or writer, everybody's an artist, and it's true. You are, but sometimes you don't have time to be. Reality is you got to make a living to be able to survive in this world. So you've got to do what you do. One time I had this life coach, and he was great. He really wanted to help me. I just want to do it for free because I don't have any musicians I'm working with. So I said, okay. So we sat down, and I think our sessions were over in about 3 sessions, because this isn't, being an artist, no matter what kind of art you're doing, is not like going to school 4 years and now you have a degree and you go get a job with that degree, and a year later you're working in your field or not, whatever, and that's your life. And you can get a life coach to help you move in those areas in your job. But with music, it's not really that way. I mean, you can get a job, 4-year degree or 6-year, and go to school in the education system. If you want to do that, it's great. But if you don't want to do that, and you're doing what a lot of musicians like me are doing, it's a whole different thing. It doesn't fit in the parameters of let's go to school and then let's get a job and let's do our thing and live happily ever after. You have to carve out your own work ethic and carve out your own way to do this that fits you. So having a life coach didn't really work, because it just, he was exasperated. He didn't know how to help me, and that was pretty funny. And that kind of showed me where I was at right there, that you're just gonna have to relax and figure this out slowly. And that's one thing I've always felt like. I do things, but they're slow. Anything I've learned has been so slow. And that's been frustrating to me. And there's been several times all musicians get in this thing where they just think I might as well just quit. They might as well. But I had a friend tell me a long time ago, he had this thing he put on a steering wheel, this saying, it just says, tell yourself a different story. And I did that for like a year. I put that on my steering wheel, and every time I was frustrated, which was most of the time, I get in, start the car up, there's this little note. Sometimes I just wanted to go, yeah. But it's, tell yourself a different story. Don't tell yourself the same old story. If you're telling yourself stories of failure and doubt, then stop it, knock it off, do something different. Tell yourself a different story. The goal is just not to be bored. And if you can just do that, not have yourself bored, that's quite a huge achievement, just to love what you do. And I've been really lucky in that. Most of the time I've been so busy, I'm always doing something creative, and sometimes that's been a curse. I wish it wasn't that way. But you're made the way you are, and you might as well embrace it. If you try to talk yourself out of it, I know a lot of people that have been musicians and artists and they aren't anymore, and they're salesmen or whatever, and they just gave up because they knew I'd never make a great living at it. I'd never be, and maybe that's smart, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's a part of you that just dies because you haven't been doing that, or at least doing it part-time or just having fun with it. It's something that you shouldn't just put away and put over to the side your whole life because I can't make money with it. I think it's a mistake. And I guess the last thing I would say is when you're talking to most musicians and artists, they go through periods of happiness and sadness, and it's like this roller coaster. And I just say, if you're depressed sometimes, like I have been, just use that to write or use it to do something creative, but don't stay there. You just use it for a short period of time. And then you get up and you do something. You have to do that. You got to get up, you do something. You don't get depressed and stay there. So I have friends that are sculptors, painters, writers. If you're writing a song, a lot of times in a day I'll just get an idea. And I have some songs, I have one I just edited that is literally 20 years old. Changed like 6 times or 7 times, it's had different lives. And I had a cello player come in and she played on it and it's finally done. Hey, if you get a chance, you like what you're hearing, you like what you're seeing, subscribe. I could really use it. I really appreciate all you people that do that. It's really a support that you can't know how important it is to people like me. Thank you very much. Have a great day.